Coral reefs are the most biodiverse ecosystem in our oceans. They occur in more than 100 countries and territories, and whilst they cover less than 1% of the seafloor, they support at least 25% of marine species, harboring the highest biodiversity of any ecosystem globally, and making them one of the most valuable ecosystems on the planet. Let us take a journey to dive into types and importance of these underwater habitats. Coral reefs can be found in tropical destinations around the world, mostly in areas around the equator where the water is warmer. More than 100 countries have a coral reef within their borders, and over half of the world's coral reefs are found within 6 countries: Australia, Indonesia, Philippines, Papua New Guinea, Fiji, and the Maldives. Coral reefs underpin the safety, coastal protection, well-being, food and economic security of hundreds of millions of coastal people in least developed countries, economies in transition, and small island developing states around the world. The value of goods and services provided by coral reefs, for example from tourism, fisheries, coastal protection, or medicinal compounds, is estimated at $2.7 trillion per year. Coral reefs are at the nexus of our triple planetary crises: biodiversity breakdown, climate emergency, and rampant pollution, resulting from decades of unsustainable production and consumption. Scientists predict that even if global warming is maintained at 1.5 degrees Celsius, up to 90% of coral reefs might disappear by 2050 due to prolonged ocean heat waves. The loss of coral reef ecosystems has profound impacts on biodiversity in our ocean, and also the livelihoods and safety of hundreds of millions of people around the world. Ensuring the survival of coral reefs is thus important for the health of our ocean, but also for the survival and well-being of humanity as a whole. Although they cover less than 0.1% of the Earth's surface, coral reefs are the most biodiverse marine ecosystem in the world. Coral reefs are home to 4,000 species of reef fish, 840 species of corals, and over 1 million species of other animals. A coral reef is made up of 3 main components: a hard surface. Submerged rocks or other hard surfaces provide a place for corals to attach and serve as habitat for many coral reef animals. Coral polyps. Coral polyps are tiny little animals and are related to anemones and jellyfish. They can live individually or in large colonies that comprise a coral reef. Reef animals. Millions of species are associated with coral reef ecosystems, and many play crucial roles in maintaining a healthy, functioning, and balanced reef. There are 2 main types of corals: hard corals and soft corals. Hard corals, like elkhorn coral and staghorn coral, grow in colonies and are often referred to as reef-building corals. Hard corals create skeletons out of calcium carbonate, a hard substance that eventually becomes rock. Over time, this rock builds up to form the foundation of a coral reef and provides a structure upon which baby corals can settle. Hard corals depend upon tiny algae called zooxanthellae that live inside them. Together they share a symbiotic relationship. The corals provide the zooxanthellae with shelter, and in return, the zooxanthellae provide the corals with food. Soft corals, like sea fingers and sea whips, are soft and bendable and often resemble plants or trees. These corals do not have stony skeletons and are non-reef building corals. Instead, they grow wood-like cores and fleshy rinds for protection. Like hard corals, they tend to live in colonies. Coral reefs are built by coral polyps as they secrete layers of calcium carbonate beneath their bodies. The corals that build reefs are known as hard or reef-building corals. Soft corals, such as sea fans and sea whips, do not produce reefs. The calcium carbonate that is created by hard corals provides a foundation for baby corals to settle upon, and if the local threats to coral reefs are limited, then the corals will build up over time and create a healthy, vibrant coral reef. Other types of animals and plants also contribute to the structure of coral reefs. Many types of algae, seaweed, sponges, sediment, and even mollusks like giant clams and oysters add to the architecture of coral reefs. When these organisms die, they also serve as foundations for new corals. Corals have a set range of conditions that they need in order to survive. When it comes down to it, coral reefs are actually fairly finicky organisms. If these conditions aren't met, corals can become stressed and diseased, and even die. Clean water. When polluted runoff and wastewater enter the marine environment, they carry chemicals, nutrients, and bacteria that can be harmful to coral reefs and spur the growth of algae that competes with corals for space. Most reef-building corals depend upon zooxanthellae. These are tiny little algae that grow inside of them that help to photosynthesize and provide food. If the water becomes cloudy or murky, or if corals are covered in sediment, the sunlight can't get to the zooxanthellae and the corals lose that important food source. Warm water. Though it varies largely on geography and the species of coral, many reef-building corals have a narrow temperature range in which they can thrive. Most hard corals prefer water temperatures that range between 73 degrees and 84 degrees Fahrenheit, which is between 23 degrees and 29 degrees Celsius. Though some can tolerate temperatures as low as 68 degrees F around 20 degrees C, and as high as 90 degrees F or 32 degrees C. That said, research has shown that corals can adapt to moderate rising ocean temperatures if they are healthy. Healthy wildlife population. Many coral reef animals play important roles within coral reef ecosystems. For example, herbivores like parrotfish and sea turtles graze on algae and help keep algae populations under control. When herbivore populations decline, coral reefs can quickly become overtaken with algae. Hard corals tend to secrete calcium carbonate underneath their bodies. This turns into a hard, rock-like structure upon which other coral larvae can settle. Over time, as the calcium carbonate builds up and corals reproduce, the size of a coral reef grows. As a coral reef begins to grow, other animals and species are also attracted to the diverse habitat and find places to settle and call home. Over 25% of all marine life can be found on coral reefs. Each plays a unique role in helping to keep the ecosystem healthy and intact. Many hard corals are broadcast spawners, meaning they broadcast large numbers of eggs and sperm into the water. This typically happens on a certain date, at a certain time, in an event known as synchronized coral spawning. The eggs and the sperm come together in the water to form coral larvae. The larvae are initially attracted to light, so they swim to the surface where they can be swept along with ocean currents. They can travel for days, or even weeks, before they find a reef to settle upon. The larvae look for hard, rock-like structures on which to settle, and research has shown that they prefer healthy reefs with favourable conditions. Once they settle, the larvae turn into polyps and form coral colonies that continue to grow. Corals will only reproduce if they are healthy. If they are bombarded by stresses like poor water quality, a marine heat wave, or overfishing, their energy will be directed at survival instead of reproduction. To ensure the future of coral reefs, we must keep corals healthy so they continue to reproduce.